Yo, YouTube, we back with another banger, man. Look, this one's a tragic story. Young lady loses her life yet again to another coward ass nigga, man. Young ladies, if y'all got fathers in y'all lives, please listen to y'all fathers, man. Heed they warnings when they trying to reach out, tell y'all something about a nigga, man. Don't always go against the grain. Please. We gotta avoid situations like this.
She meant everything to us. She meant everything to me. Didn't know how much she meant to me until this day. A father living a nightmare after receiving a call his daughter, 21-year-old Autumn Shanks, was shot and killed in her apartment early Friday morning. The night was still, the streets quiet, and the world outside oblivious to what had just happened inside apartment 107. But at exactly 1:53 a.m., that silence was shattered. A call came through to 911, frantic, rushed, a voice on the other and barely holding it together. The words were chilling. She's been shot. She's not moving. Within minutes, Ridgeland police arrived at the Pinebrook Apartment complex, their squad cars casting flashing streaks of red and blue against the darkened buildings. The apartment door stood slightly ajar. Officers stepped inside, their boots echoing against the
21
cold
year
tile
old
floor.
baby, man.
The air was thick, too still, too quiet,
Pretty
like the
young
very
girl.
walls had absorbed the horror of what had just taken place. In the bedroom, under the dim glow of a single lamp, they found her. Autumn Diane Shanks, 21 years old. She lay motionless, her body still, her future stolen in an instant. A single gunshot wound to the head. The room showed no signs of a struggle. There were no desperate claw marks on the floor, no overturned furniture, no shattered glass. Just a quiet, chilling finality. But then there was him, standing just feet away, looking on. Dannquarious Deuntea Byest, 23 years old. No panic in his eyes, no signs of a desperate lover trying to revive the woman he claimed to care for. He was just there, staring, unmoved. The gun was found inside the apartment, the evidence undeniable. But the question still lingered, was this the moment everyone had feared? Was this the final act in a story that had been unraveling long before that fatal shot rang out? Autumn's father had warned her. Her family had tried to pull her away. There were signs, so many signs. But the system let him slip through the cracks, time and time again. Now it was too late. And as officers secured the scene, the weight of what had just happened settled over them like a suffocating fog. The life of a young woman gone, and the man who took it, still standing, still breathing, watching as her body was carried out into the night. What led to this? What really happened inside that apartment in the moments before the trigger was pulled? And could Autumn have been saved? Tonight, we uncover the truth behind the murder of Autumn Shanks, a young woman whose desperate fight to escape a dangerous relationship came to a violent and tragic end. Autumn Diane Shanks was just 21 years old.
Bro, I just stopped the motherfucking damn content, but this is happening at an all time high in everybody community, no matter what race of people you are. Shit ain't right. For you coward ass niggas think y'all can control a young lady because of their beauty, and you finally found something that loved you and tried to help you, tried to do things right by you, and you take their life.
Young, full of life, with dreams that stretched far beyond the walls of that small Ridgeland apartment. To those who knew her, she was a force of energy, passionate, driven, and brimming with potential. But none of that would matter on the night of February 7th. Because in a moment of calculated violence, everything she could have been, everything she had worked toward, was stolen from her. The man accused of pulling the trigger? 23-year-old Dannquarious Deuntea Byest. To the outside world, he was a former high school athlete, the son of a preacher raised in a family that carried influence within their community. But behind closed doors, there were whispers, stories of rage, of control, of a temper that had boiled over before. Stories that, if they had been taken seriously, might have changed the course of what was to come. Their relationship had been anything but peaceful. A storm that had raged for years, with Autumn caught at the center, unable to break free. Family and friends had watched with growing concern. Her father had tried, pleaded, warned, even confronted Byest directly. But the system that was supposed to protect her didn't. And now the consequences were irreversible. How did this happen? How does a young woman with so much ahead of her end up a victim of the very person she once trusted? And at what point did this relationship cross the line from troubled to deadly? If you're new to True Crime Stories HQ, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the real stories, the cases that demand to be heard, and the voices that deserve justice. This is a case you won't want to miss.
I've been yearning for this moment. Hi. Love you.
Before that night, before the sirens, before the police tape and the headlines, Autumn Diane Shanks was just a girl with a world of possibilities ahead of her. To
Could
those who
have been
knew
a
her,
model.
she was more than just a daughter, a sister, a friend. She was light, energy, the kind of person whose presence filled a room before she even said a word. Autumn grew up in a small, tight-knit family. She was fearless, adventurous. As a child, she was always on the move, racing bikes, climbing trees, challenging herself to do the things others hesitated to try. But even as she grew older, as she embraced her femininity and found new passions, that fire inside her never dimmed. She loved beauty, fashion, and makeup, but just as easily, she could be found behind the wheel of her Audi, riding through town on her motorcycle, balancing elegance with a raw, untamed confidence. Her father, Orlando Shanks, remembers her as someone who was impossible to ignore, a girl whose laughter came easily and whose kindness left a mark on everyone she met. But nothing could have prepared him for the loss that would come. Her father, Orlando Shanks, said, "She meant everything to us. She meant everything to me. Didn't know how much she meant to me until this day." In high school, Autumn met Dannquarious Deuntea Byest. To some, he was charming, an athlete, a preacher's son, someone who carried himself with confidence. A young man from a well-known family. On the surface, he seemed like a perfect match, but beneath that image was something else entirely. Byest had a past, a reputation for being controlling, for losing his temper. There were whispers, incidents that never made it beyond private conversations, moments that should have been warnings. But warnings are easy to overlook when the person standing in front of you is telling you everything you want to hear. Autumn's friends and family saw it. They were worried. They questioned the relationship. They noticed how she started to change. How the bold, fearless girl they knew became quieter, more reserved. The love that should have lifted her up seemed to be holding her down. Her father tried to intervene. The love story between Autumn Shanks and Dannquarious Byest should have been over before it even started. But it wasn't love, it was control. And control has a way of tightening its grip until escape feels impossible. Autumn was young when they met, full of energy, ambition, and a belief in the best in people. She was a free spirit, someone who thrived on independence. But Byest saw that light in her, and instead of nurturing it, he worked to dim it. What started as small arguments turned into emotional manipulation, and soon, she was caught in a pattern she couldn't break. At first, it was just words. Then it was isolation. Then it was worse, controlling where she went, who she saw, what she did. If she tried to pull away, he would find a way to reel her back in, with apologies, with empty promises, with carefully chosen words that made her believe he could change.
Saw my daughter last. We had a talk Tuesday. That was my last time with her. And if I had any notion that this was going on, I would have snatched her away. I would not have allowed her to go back into that situation.
But it was never about love. It was about power. And power, once tasted, is not easily surrendered. Byest was the son of a preacher. He came from a family known for their influence, their reputation. To the outside world, he was disciplined, structured, even charming. But behind closed doors, his anger had no limits. And Autumn was the one who suffered for it. Friends began to notice the changes first. The way her smile seemed forced. The way she became quieter, more hesitant. She was always looking over her shoulder, as if she knew, deep down, that something was coming. Her father saw it too. He begged her to leave. He warned her. But leaving isn't easy when the person you fear the most is the same one convincing you that you need them. And then, there was the night everything should have changed. It was supposed to be a conversation, a father looking out for his daughter. But instead, It turned into a brutal attack. Orlando Shanks confronted Dannquarious Byest face to face. There was no shouting, no raised voices, just a warning. Stay away from my daughter. Do not hurt her again. But Byest wasn't the kind of man to take orders. In an instant, before Orlando could react, Byest lashed out. The first punch was enough to drop him. The second left him unconscious. And when he came to, his vision blurred, pain shooting through his skull. What he saw was something no father should ever have to witness. His daughter, Autumn, standing between them, begging Byest to stop, pleading for the safety of the very man who had just hurt her father. For most people, that moment would have been the breaking point. The moment she finally saw him for what he was. But abuse is never that simple. Fear keeps you tethered. And fear was exactly what kept Autumn from leaving. Her father fought for her. He tried to get the police to listen, tried to get the courts to intervene. But every time, Byest walked free. Every time, the cycle continued. And every time, Autumn was left more and more isolated. But in the months leading up to her death, something changed. Autumn was starting to fight back. She had begun reconnecting with her father, opening up, finding the strength to leave. She was trying to break free. The texts became less frequent. The visits home became more common. She was getting ready to start a new chapter. But there is something about control, something about men like Byest. They do not let go easily. And when they feel it slipping from their grasp, they tighten their hold. The most dangerous time for a victim of abuse is when they decide to leave. It is the moment where the abuser feels the loss of power. And for Autumn, it was the moment that would seal her fate. She was making plans. She was ready to walk away. But on the night of February 7th, 2025, that choice was stolen from her. 911 dispatcher. 911, what's your emergency? Caller. Frantic, struggling for breath. She's been shot. She's not moving. Please, hurry, please. The call came in at 1:53 a.m. The voice on the other end of the line was panicked, desperate. Officers from the Ridgeland Police Department were dispatched immediately. They had no idea what they were about to walk into. Less than 10 minutes later, police arrived at Pinebrook Apartments, a quiet complex tucked away on Knoll Drive. But that night, it was anything but quiet. The red and blue glow of squad car lights painted the walls of the buildings, cutting through the early morning darkness. The air was heavy, the kind of silence that only follows something irreversible. As they stepped inside, the first thing they noticed was the smell of gunpowder, clung to the air, thick and unmistakable. The living room was in disarray. Pillows knocked over, a lamp on the floor, a half-empty bottle of alcohol on the table. But it was the bedroom that told the real story. There on the bed was Autumn Byest, Shanks, 21 years old. A single gunshot wound to the head. Blood pooled beneath her, seeping into the fabric of the sheets. Her eyes were closed. She never had a chance to fight back. The officers froze, taking in the horror in front of them. The details, how her body was positioned, the lack of struggle, everything suggested that this wasn't an accident. This was execution. And then there was him, Dannquarious Deuntea Byest, 23 years old, standing just a few feet away from Autumn's body, his hands at his sides. His expression was blank. He didn't run. He didn't cry. He didn't even ask for help. He just stood there. To the officers on scene, it was as if he felt nothing. No remorse. No fear. No panic. The man they believed had just taken a life was calm. The officers secured the scene, moving quickly to detain Byest. He did not resist. They found the weapon, a firearm, sitting nearby. Still warm. Still holding the evidence of what had just happened. As news of the tragedy spread, law enforcement released a statement.
Ridgeland Police Chief Brian Myers released a statement about the incident, saying, "Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and loved ones of Miss Shanks. Law enforcement feels the weight of such tragic loss, and we mourn alongside this family. With this loss, Shanks' advice to others who may be in this situation is to take action before things get out of hand."
But behind those words, there was something heavier. A question that no one could ignore. Was this preventable? Break free with the new Opera GX, a browser that puts you in control with a brand new design that frees up even more pixels for personalization and an inventory of features to up your game at every level. Like GX Control to help rein in your resources with integrated limiters for RAM, CPU, and network. A sidebar for direct access to your favorite side quests, streams, and posts. And built-in privacy tools like ad and tracker blockers and free no-log VPN. Check into GX Corner for the latest news, deals, and free games. But what really makes art hit different is mods, giving you the power to change everything from animated wallpapers to themes, sounds, music, and shaders, so you can change everything. Get Opera GX. At exactly 4 a.m., the phone rang. A call that no parent should ever receive. On the other end, a voice, steady but heavy, delivering the words that would change his life forever. Orlando, the father, said, "I didn't know what the call was about at 4 in the morning, and he went on to tell me that my daughter was dead." For Orlando Shanks, the pain is unbearable, the weight of regret unshakable. He had fought for his daughter. He had warned her, pleaded with her, tried to pull her away from the man who would eventually take her life.
I thought I was in trouble. I didn't know what the call was about at 4 o'clock in the morning. So he told me to sit down, and I sat, and he went on to tell me that my daughter was dead. And I was stunned. I was shocked. I was hurt. I'm still hurting.
Ridgeland police say they received a call just before 2 a.m. about someone being shot in the head at the Pinebrook Apartment complex. When officers arrived on scene, they were met by Dannquarious Byest. After searching the apartment, police found 21-year-old Shanks dead in the bedroom. Police say she had been shot. Orlando Shanks says his daughter was in a toxic relationship with Byest, but had no idea things were this bad until it was too late.
I saw my daughter last. We had a talk Tuesday. That was my last time with her. And if I had any notion that this was going on, I would have snatched her away. I would not have allowed her to go back into that situation.
Byest has been charged with first-degree murder and is being held with no bond at the Madison County Detention Center.
But now all he can do is ask himself, was there more he could have done? Orlando Shanks, if I had any notion this was going on, I would have snatched her away. I would not have let her go back. But his message now is clear. A warning, a plea, a desperate call to parents, to loved ones, to anyone who might be watching and recognizing these signs in someone they know. Orlando Shanks.
With this loss, Shanks' advice to others who may be in this situation is to take action before things get out of hand.
Be attentive. Do your part, and just whatever you got to do, take them out of a bad situation, because it won't end good.
Now, Byest also has a court date scheduled for March 11th. I'm live in Ridgeland. Crystal Tisme, 16 WAPT News.
The man responsible for Autumn's death never tried to run. He never showed remorse. As officers arrived on scene, they found Dannquarious Deuntea Byest still inside the apartment, standing just feet away from her body. Emotionless. Cold. Silent. He was placed in handcuffs. Arrested on the spot. There was no chase. No struggle. Just the slow, deliberate steps of a man whose fate had already been sealed. Hours later, he was booked into Madison County Detention Center, charged with first-degree murder. The charge carries weight. The possibility of life in prison. The potential of something even greater, the death penalty. Autumn Byest Shanks was more than just a headline. She was a daughter, a friend, a young woman whose life was only just beginning. She had dreams. She had a future. And now, she will never have the chance to live it. Her name joins a long list of women whose warnings were ignored, who begged for help and were met with silence, who tried to escape, only to be pulled back into the grasp of the men who believed they owned them. If you or someone you love is in a dangerous relationship, don't wait. Don't assume things will get better. Don't believe the apologies, the promises, the temporary calm. Because the most dangerous time for a victim of abuse is when they finally decide to leave. Help is available. National domestic violence hotlines, crisis centers, support groups. The resources exist, but they only work if they're used. If you know someone in a situation like this, be their lifeline, because tomorrow might be too late. What do you think should happen to Dannquarious Byest? Should he face the full weight of the law? And do you believe that the system failed Autumn? Let us know in the comments below. Your voice matters. This isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. We have more true crime cases coming your way, cases that demand to be heard, victims whose stories cannot be forgotten. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And if you found this story important, if you believe Autumn deserves justice, hit that like button. More people need to hear her story.
It'd be too much for me. So I already see what's going on, man. It's another episode. We out.